Good evening. I'm Kathy Morin with the Government of Alberta, and I'll be your host for tonight's live and interactive telephone town hall for Albertans evacuated by the 2024 wildfires. I'm joined by Premier Danielle Smith, Mayor of Jasper Richard Ireland, Deputy Premier and Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services Mike Ellis, Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services Jason Nixon, Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade Matt Jones, as well as senior government officials and agency representatives who are on hand to answer your questions, including representatives from Alberta Wildfire, Parks Canada, the Red Cross, RCMP, and the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Before we hear from our speakers, let me start by explaining how tonight's information session will work. Right now, evacuees from Alberta are connecting to the call and will have a chance to join the conversation. You can ask a question at any time by pressing *3 on your phone, and you'll be connected to an operator who will take down your question and relay it to our panel. If you're listening online, you can also submit questions and comments through the online portal. Now, I would like to welcome Premier Smith to share a few opening remarks, followed by Mayor Ireland and Minister Ellis. Premier Smith, please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. I'm joined by Richard Ireland, the Mayor of Jasper, Mike Ellis, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, Jason Nixon, Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, Matt Jones, Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade, and Martin Long, MLA for the West Yellowhead constituency. We're also joined by officials from across government, along with external partners, and we're all here to provide you the latest information on Alberta's wildfire situation and answer your questions. I know those of you who've had to leave your homes are eager to know what's ahead and what's next for you and your families. And tonight we hope to provide answers and bring more clarity to a situation that sadly remains fluid. First, I once again want to express my gratitude for the first responders and emergency crews working around the clock to battle the fires. We're also grateful to other jurisdictions across Canada and around the world who've dispatched teams, equipment, and resources. You should know there's been about 3,200 different personnel who've gone through Jasper on different rotations to fight the fires and restore the town so that you can return. Their heroic efforts are critical in this fight, and they're working to prevent as much damage to affected communities as they possibly can. They played a large part in saving critical infrastructure in Jasper, including the hospital and the wastewater treatment plant. Having no or limited damage to these structures may help the folks who've been evacuated and still have homes return to them that much sooner. However, the wildfire situation in Jasper remains ever-changing, so at this time, there is still no firm timeline for re-entry. I also want to thank you for your patience as we needed to adjust when those bus tours happened, delaying the first buses from a Sunday departure to yesterday on the holiday. It's important for you to be able to see the situation in Jasper with your own eyes, but we do appreciate that you waited a bit longer as we postponed those tours following the tragic death of one of our wildland firefighters in the national park. Our next buses for residents will go to the town site on Wednesday, and I know many of you are registered. I also want to share with you some of what I spoke to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about yesterday when he made the trip to visit the Hinton Command Centre. Once re-entry is possible, we will need to tackle many urgent priorities to ensure the needs of residents are being met. Right now, it's estimated that upwards of 350 residential structures have been lost within the Jasper municipal boundaries. Temporary housing will be an overriding priority once you begin to return, and it will be essential for the federal government to be as flexible as possible to keep housing sited within the town site or to be flexible on boundaries to create those temporary communities. Given Jasper's reliance on tourism and its inherent challenges with hiring, I've encouraged the federal government to explore an emergency wage subsidy and suspend lease payments for a few months to help businesses avoid layoffs. This will allow businesses to reopen faster so tourists can return as soon as possible and so that your town can start recovering economically. I've also asked for Ottawa to consider additional federal funding under the $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund to help Jasper take on additional land planning responsibilities. It sounds like that transition was already underway, but this is an opportunity to accelerate increased local control and resourcing, which will be crucial to speed up the redevelopment process. And I've indicated to the Prime Minister that owners of critical businesses have been permitted to access their businesses to begin assessing damages and necessary repairs as required by their insurance companies. And I think Mayor Ireland will have more to say on this. The first of the owners were given access to their businesses to begin assessing damages yesterday. I expressed our thanks for Ottawa's continued collaboration during this crisis, and I made it clear that working together will only become more imperative as we look to recovery after the fires. That was one of the things that was reinforced by many in the command center, is that having all three levels of government work together in unified command has really been a model for how we would be able to address these kinds of tragedies in the future. In closing, I want to thank communities across the province that have stepped up to support their fellow Albertans. Compassion and generosity are in our DNA, and it makes me proud to be Albertan. To everyone who is out there, stay safe and stay strong, and do know that our government is there for you. Now I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Premier Smith. As we enter the third week of this emergency, I want to pause for a moment, as the Premier did, to respect and honor the young Calgary wildland firefighter who gave his life working to protect our home, and to offer our deepest condolences to his family, to his loved ones, and to his colleagues. In spite of the significant property losses that we have suffered, we had taken such solace in the fact that for most of 2 long weeks, with thousands of people safely evacuated and hundreds of responders arriving in our community and in Jasper National Park to battle the fire, we had avoided personal injury and death. Saturday's tragic loss changes that and severely compounds the loss that we all feel. It also reinforces what a dangerous job responders do. And so I take this opportunity to acknowledge the ultimate sacrifice of one, and to thank all of the responders who continue to work so hard and so effectively in aid of our community. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the province for providing this opportunity to speak with community members and for including the municipality in this session. I want to acknowledge the support that we have received from all levels of government. I repeat, as the Premier mentioned, the visit from the Prime Minister yesterday. We've had previous visits, of course, from the Premier. We've had visits from federal and provincial ministers, including Minister Ellis, who is with us tonight, Minister Nixon and Minister Lowen, 3 ministers from the federal government. And yesterday, I think it was reinforced just what a high level of collaboration and cooperation we continue to see through all 3 levels of government. It is working extremely well, as the Premier noted to the Prime Minister yesterday. There is every expectation that this form of unity will continue as we move from the response to the re-entry into the recovery phases. I want to also thank the province for facilitating the resident visits, which got underway yesterday. Last I looked, there were over 500 residents who have signed up for those visits. I appreciate that it will be a difficult experience for many. It is raw. It will be very emotional. I encourage anyone who has signed up for one of those visits to brace yourselves. There will be supports available during the visits, but I encourage you to have supports available when you return from those visits. I hope that it will bring closure, as it is intended to do, but I appreciate that it is sufficiently difficult for some that they see the need to do that experience privately, and we certainly respect that. I recognize as well, as the Premier mentioned, that people will want to know about re-entry and about the reactivation of our visitor economy, and say that the conditions have been set for re-entry. Work is progressing concurrently on all of the conditions. There are over 40 sub-plans in various stages of implementation. In some cases, they are 100% complete, waiting for finishing of other plans and the achievement of those conditions, but it is progressing, and it is progressing well. I recognize too, and again, the Premier spoke to this, that when we allow residents to return, and it will be a phased approach, they will need more than housing. Residents need jobs. They need, if not a full-blown, at least a functioning economy. And we know that visitation is the basis of the visitor economy, which underpins our entire economy. And I am satisfied that all three levels of government share that as a priority. I'm confident that the level of commitment and collaboration and cooperation that we have seen to date will continue through the re-entry and the recovery phases. I know that residents will have many questions, and I will, as I always do, lean on the subject matter experts to provide more detailed answers to your questions. I thank you all for attending. I acknowledge and thank our MLA, Martin Long, for his continuing support. I wish to recognize as well that our Member of Parliament, Gerald Soroka, was able to attend and have a tour of the community as well, and understands what we are going through and is open to assist citizens of our community as he is able. There are so many people who have offered support to our community. It really is heartwarming. On your behalf, I have thanked as many as I can, but I will continue to do so as I am able. And again, I thank you for attending this evening, and I thank the province for providing this opportunity. Thank you all.
And thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Premier, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us at today's telephone town hall. I am Mike Ellis. I'm the Deputy Premier and Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services. Before I begin my remarks, I too want to express my deepest condolences to the young man who lost his life. My sincere condolences go out to all those who have been affected, both directly and indirectly. And I think it's important that we continue to acknowledge that sacrifice whenever we can. I also want to express my sincere condolences for the grief and uncertainty and frustration that you are all feeling right now. I know this is a very difficult time. While no words of comfort could ever be enough, please know that we're here to answer any and all questions that we can. Before you can return to your homes, it's important to ensure it is safe to do so, and that there are critical community lifelines in place to support residents. Alberta's government is working very closely with both the municipality as well as Parks Canada, and we're going to continue to provide support through the recovery process. On Monday, Alberta's government planned and carried out several controlled bus tours for Jasper residents to visit the town site and gauge the fire's impacts on their homes. Ensuring that the evacuees were able to partake in these tours to access damage, of course, is top priority for this Alberta government. These tours will continue until everyone who wants to go has had a chance to do so. Also on Monday, the municipality began supporting access to the town site for the owners and operators of critical services, such as gas stations, grocery stores, and pharmacies. We understand that everyone is eager to assess the damages to their holdings. Unfortunately, there is no date yet for everyone's return to the community. It is important to remember that the wildfire is still very active, and firefighters are working very hard to limit damage and keep the community safe. It is still deemed an out-of-control fire. You are a priority for us, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to support you in the days and weeks and, of course, the months ahead. So thank you, and I'll hand it back to our moderator, Kathy, to open up for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ellis, and thank you, Mayor Ireland and Premier Smith as well for your opening remarks. For those of you who've just joined the call, welcome to tonight's information session for wildfire evacuees in Alberta. If you'd like to ask a question at any time during the information session, please press *3 on your phone and you'll be entered into the queue to speak with an operator. For those of you listening online, please enter your comment directly into the portal. Now let's get to the first question of the evening. This question comes online from Melissa, and the question is, why are the tours still only for people with lost or damaged homes? When can others go? And I'll see if Bill Gibbon from Town of Jasper and perhaps Joe from AEMA would like to answer that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kathy. We're actually encouraging all residents to register online for the tours. And based on the numbers and what we're seeing, we're able to accommodate both those that have lost or have damaged structures in Jasper and those that still have their structures intact. So please feel free to register online at alberta.emergency.ca, and we will get to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Our next question also comes online from Joanne. The question is, we're getting close to the end of summer and I don't know what to do about school registrations. What do we do? I'm going to ask Kathy from Education or Kindy to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne, very much for your question. I just wanted to acknowledge the loss in Jasper as well. And I wanted to note that the health and safety of students, staff, and community members remains our top priority. We have been working very closely with the school authorities, the two school authorities that operate in Jasper, to plan for this support and stability for students in the weeks and months ahead. So parents are encouraged to contact their school authority for the most up-to-date information on school operations and education continuity. They would be in the best position to respond to these inquiries. I also do want to note that we are looking at potential options should the Jasper school sites not be able to open for the start of the school year. Parents and students can contact the school authority wherever they are to register should they need to do so as a displaced student. School authorities across the province are accepting students who have been displaced from Jasper if needed. Thank you again, Joanne, for your question.
Thank you, Kindy. We're going to take a live question now from Joshua. Joshua from Jasper, your line is now open. Please go ahead for your question for Bill Gibbon from the Town of Jasper.
Hey, good evening. How's everyone doing? Oh.
Thanks. Go ahead, Joshua.
Hello? Oh, yeah, no, I'm here. You guys there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, so I've just, my heart bleeds for everyone involved, and it's just the legacy and the history that's been somewhat erased. And, I can't help because of the way that I've dealt with my own personal loss. There's no better way to get over something like that is just move forward and put the plan in motion and get something happening. And I'm really interested to know when, the worker bees, when we are going to be able to get in there and help clean up and help rebuild this mess.
Well, maybe I'll just say that one of the things that we're looking at, because we're looking at what happened at other incidents like this, like Slave Lake, as well as Fort McMurray, and the two of the big measures are making sure every structure has been analyzed so that they can be reconnected with power and reconnected with gas. We're making great progress on both of those, and I think that there's a hope that that'll be completed within the next few days. But the big issue is around the fire that's north and south. The difference between Slave Lake and Fort McMurray is that the fire came and went through a portion of the city. This one, the town has been enveloped by the fire, and so that's what makes it a little bit more difficult to determine, because you don't want to get back in town and then find a wind gust reignites the fire and brings it back into town. I don't know if somebody can talk about the fire risk, because that might help to provide some perspective about how these two processes are going on at the same time, that everything's getting prepared for people to return, but there is still a fire risk that's a bit of an unusual situation compared to previous ones.
Thank you, Premier. Bill, did you want to add at all?
Well, maybe in addition to what Premier mentioned about the fire risk, which is a real and current hazard, certainly all three levels of government are working towards supporting reentry and reestablishing, getting Jasperites home, and very closely following that, and in some cases preceding that, we are going to need worker bees to be in the town site to make it ready for Jasperites and to rebuild the community. So all three orders of government are focused on that right now. Certainly there will be significant rebuilding efforts that will be required, and we are all focused on ensuring that there are appropriate accommodations to be able to support the workforce that will be required for that rebuild. That is in the early planning stages, but it certainly is already underway. And we'd ask everyone to stay tuned as that will all follow, general workers will follow resident reentry.
Thank you for that. Our next question comes online from Adrienne. Adrienne's question is, can we expect more support from the government because $1,250 doesn't last very long? I'm going to see if Minister Nixon and perhaps Melanie Solar from Red Cross could answer that.
Well, I'll go first if I can. Thank you for the question. First, maybe I should just quickly recap everything that is available already when it comes to evacuations. Anybody who's had to evacuate Jasper as a result of the fire, and anybody who's had to evacuate any fire scene in the province is entitled to $1,250 per adult and $500 per child. I will also point out that there's $750 available for each household from the Red Cross process that's been set up with the provincial and federal government with Red Cross. You can register for that process through Alberta/emergency.ca. And I know that officials will make sure that we update that website throughout this call to make sure you didn't miss that. In addition to that, please make sure that if you're in a situation where you can't work with your employer, that you're reaching out through Service Canada to start the EI process, employment insurance process, I should say. They are expediting that process as a result of the fire, as well as if there is some need for immediate emergency assistance. My department, the Department of Social Services, is available to help, and you can reach us at 1-866-644-5135 and be able to reach out to talk about those circumstances, and we'll do our best to be able to help you. None of these avenues are intended to be able to help everybody deal with the circumstance as big as losing one's house. Obviously, this is to deal with the evacuation stage. What is very critical is to start that insurance process as well. And then obviously, as this progresses, both the provincial and federal governments at emergency cabinet level will be having conversations about what other supports may or may not be needed. But that is what's available at the moment. I don't know if Red Cross wants to add anything to that.
Thanks, Jason. My name is Melanie. I'm representing the Canadian Red Cross, and it is a contribution from the Red Cross at the $750 per household mark, in complement with the other supports that are offered by the provincial government. And certainly there are supports available through the municipalities who are currently providing in many locations lodging and food supports on top of that financial contribution. Also, as Jason said, this is the first step to provide supports during this prolonged evacuation period, and we're working hard to see what the next collaborative program will be in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you for that. And thanks to all of you who've joined tonight's information session. If you would like to ask a question at any time during the session, please press *3 on your phone, and you'll be entered into the queue to speak to an operator. For those of you listening online, please enter your comment directly into the portal. And I did just want to add that any additional phone numbers or emails or websites that you hear about this evening, they'll be found, you can find those at alberta.ca/emergency. So again, all the phone numbers and resources you hear about tonight will be available through the website. So we'll get to our next question, which is a live question. Margot has called in and has a question for Bill Given from the town of Jasper. Margot, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Go
Okay.
ahead with your question, Margot. Thank you.
Okay. My question is there a plan in place for the disposal of everybody's fridges and freezers and taking them to the dump as an en masse kind of plan? Or is everybody individually responsible for that?
Margot, thanks for the question. Bill Given here. So we've had conversations with this already with the insurance industry, and maybe would pass it over to Rob from the Insurance Bureau of Canada. My understanding is that industry is looking at some collective solutions for this. We've also wanted to ensure that we're providing information to evacuees and folks that are thinking about this, because it is also case dependent. My understanding is that not every white good will necessarily be thrown out. But I think Rob has some more info about how the insurance industry is approaching this.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Margot. Margot, you're right. The longer that people are out, there's a possibility that fridges and freezers might have to be thrown out. We're working very closely and we're developing a plan for that potential disposal process. We're also working closely with health officials because depending on the actual fridge and freezer, you may not have to be getting rid of that particular appliance. It might be cleaned. So we need some clear guidance, and that's being developed right now as well. But we want you to be rest assured that when the residents are able to return, we do have a plan in place. The insurance industry was assisting with this in Fort McMurray. We've done it before, and we'll be working with all of the necessary stakeholders and many of the other people that are involved in order to make sure this is done properly and effectively.
Thank you for that. Our next question comes from Valerie. It's for Parks Canada. Valerie asks, will landowners be forced to rebuild again before selling their land? Can they sell their raw land? I'm going to ask Steve from Parks Canada to answer that.
Hi there, and thanks for the question. Certainly vacant lots are, if you hold a lease for a vacant lot in Jasper, that's something that you can sell as a vacant lot. The one complication I would say, Valerie, and would be that if you have a mortgage or a link to your insurance company, you'll have to work with those players in your household finance to be sure that you have that all addressed in that sense. But yeah, there's no reason that you cannot sell the leased year vacant lot to another interested party.
Thank you, Steve. Our next question comes in from Chuck. The question is, are we further ahead on living arrangements for those who lost their homes? Many would like to live in Jasper while construction is ongoing. I'm going to ask David Williams from SCSS to answer that, please.
Hi, thank you very much for the question. Very much aware of the need for and the paramount need for housing and for interim housing for those who have unfortunately suffered a loss during the fire. We're currently in the process working closely with Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper on beginning to assess the needs, the temporary housing needs for those individuals who have lost their home, and to begin the planning process. And we're in the midst of the planning process to bring in additional housing and to provide additional assistance for those who may need some temporary accommodation. So more to come, but rest assured that we're working very closely with the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada to bring in additional housing as required.
Thank you, David. Our next question is related, so we may ask Bill from the town of Jasper to answer this one. It comes from Len, and Len asks, will I be able to park my RV in my driveway to house people that do not have a home?
Yeah, well, just to build on what David said, as I think he mentioned, we are at all three levels working together on a housing plan for Jasperites. And broadly, we're looking at three different time horizons, sort of that 10 to 90 days, from entry to 90 days for transitional accommodation, to be able to ensure that, when Jasperites are able to return, that they have somewhere to return to. And then that 90 plus days for interim housing, recognizing that there are a number of destroyed properties, that it will take some time for the actual construction, just as a sort of practical matter. And so we're considering that time horizon as well. For that 10 to 90 days, the transitional accommodation as we head into winter, I think the group is willing to look at all options. I saw another question about PHAs. That's another area where we're looking at using all of the options that are available to us to get Jasperites home as soon as possible, while we put in place the accommodations that are required to house them for longer for those whose houses were destroyed in the fire.
And it's Steve Blake here. I can add to that. This PHA is a private home accommodation. Those are currently licensed through Parks Canada. And the inspection and life safety requirements for PHA are aligned with other residential occupancies. So there wouldn't be a specific reason why they couldn't be used to house people long term. You would just have to change the status of that unit within your home. And yeah, just to add to that, Bill, thank you.
Thank you both. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question at any time during the information session, please press *3 on your phone to be entered into the queue to speak to one of our operators. And for those of you listening online, please enter your comment directly into the portal. So we'll go to our next question from Angel. Angel's question is, we're trying to look into buying a new vehicle and inquiring about insurance. Banks say they're on a seller's hold for car insurance. It's for the Jasper residents that the hold is for. Do you know when the ban will be lifted? I'll ask Rob from the Insurance Bureau of Canada to answer that, please.
Angel, you bring up a great point, and we want to share some general information. So when there's a major wildfire event, like we're experiencing in Jasper, insurance companies place temporary restrictions on the sale of new insurance for those particular properties that are in that area. Now, these restrictions are typically for properties and not for vehicles. Automobile insurance is mandatory in Alberta and across the country. So it sounds like there might be a misunderstanding or miscommunication from the person that you're getting the vehicle from, because you're not living in Jasper right now. You're not planning on buying the vehicle and driving it into Jasper because we have an evacuation order. So it's just a matter of talking to the right people, explaining your situation, that you're not living in that community. Now, for anyone else who's looking for property insurance, these restrictions, they ease once the threat starts to ease. We know that the emergency management and the wildfire officials are working very, very hard to get this wildfire and deal with it as best they can. And as we make progress on that, the insurance is going to go back to business as usual, and you'll be able to get insurance or make major changes as you normally would. It's just a matter of time. Be patient, but you should be able to get automobile insurance for your new vehicle.
Thank you, Rob. Our next question comes online from Alex. Alex asks, what is the money that's being donated to the Red Cross being used for? So I'll direct that to Melanie from the Red Cross.
Thank you. We're in the very fortunate position. We're very grateful to have the donations in the first 30 days to be matched by the province of Alberta and the federal government, which triples our donations in the first 30 days. Our plan for the donations are to continue to launch programs that support basic needs for those who are impacted, and also to support reentry and early recovery needs. We'll be sitting at the table with other partners such as IBC, the town, and the government of Alberta to be able to identify gaps to see how we mobilize those funds to make the biggest impact. We're looking at granting to community groups. We know that it's important to get those community serving agencies back up on their feet and to reinforce them to be able to handle the increased needs that they'll also be seeing. And you may have noticed, if you registered with the Canadian Red Cross, you received a survey. It was a voluntary survey asking a short 8 questions to describe your personal situation and your concerns. And so we also use this survey to be able to inform the programming that we'll use to mobilize those funds going forward. Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Amanda. Amanda's question is, why are you still restricting non-commercial vehicles on Highway 16? When can we move between Valemount and Hinton? So I'll see if maybe Bill from Town of Jasper or Mayor Ireland have a response to that. Thank you.
Sure, I can speak to that in part. So certainly we have been able to successfully open up opportunities for Jasperites and Alberta residents that evacuated to the west to be able to come back in. If people haven't seen that schedule already, please make sure to check the municipality's website. We have a facilitated way to support that transition from BC back into Alberta. We are working towards expanding access to Highway 16 very soon. It really is about the ability to secure the 40-plus entrances and pull-out sites along the highway. We're working towards enabling that as soon as possible. We appreciate that that's an important corridor, but I think you can already see that we've managed a staged approach of commercial traffic, then that evacuee traffic, and then the next would be that ultimate reopening, but it is subject to the ability to secure the highway right-of-way for safety of those that are traveling through.
Thank you. Our next question is, can you tell us which blocks have power? So maybe back to you, Bill, for that.
Sure. So I can say that right now, critical infrastructure is either or already has been re-energized. And so that means that important facilities like the water treatment plant, the healthcare center, the emergency services building, and others have already been re-energized. APCO is working very rapidly on re-energizing the town site with a particular focus on the north end of town. There was significant damage to a lot of infrastructure, not just from the fire, but also from high winds. So they're certainly focusing on that infrastructure first before moving on to the other areas of the town site that suffered more significant damage from the fire itself. They have a good plan and they're moving through quite quickly. And I would just encourage everyone, as they're following along with our reentry criteria, the municipality has recently updated its website to provide more insight and more detail on progress. So please do check the Municipality of Jasper's website for our reentry criteria and reentry progress, where you can see ongoing and daily updates about progress on each of the different reentry criteria, including all of the utilities.
Thank you. Just a reminder to anyone who'd like to ask a question for any member of our panel, please press *3 on your phone and you'll be entered into the queue to speak to an operator who will take down your question. For those of you listening online, please enter your question or comment directly into the portal. So our next question is from Kelly for Parks Canada. Since the fires are considered to be out of control, what is the current risk of fire to the town site? So maybe Steve from Parks could answer that. Thank you.
Hi, it's actually Lindsay from Parks Canada, so I can take that question. So there is still active fire on the landscape. The rain over the last few days, so yesterday throughout the park, there was about 6 to 11 millimeters throughout the park. Today there was an additional 2.5 millimeters expected. So that is really like lending efforts to the crews that are working on the ground. The primary focus over the last few days has really been securing that perimeter around the Pyramid Bench area. So while hotspots have all been actioned in that area, patrols will continue over the coming days just to ensure that there's no continued flare-ups in that zone. And as well, like the main goal right now that they'll be continuing to work on to really ensure the safety of the town site is securing the northeast fire perimeter, to the northeast of the town site. So there is still a lot of active wildfire on the landscape. Over the coming days, we are expecting temperatures to warm, the relative humidity levels to drop again, And so we could still see some increased fire behavior coming into the weekend.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Chris. Chris's question is, when will the owners and operators of non-critical businesses be allowed to see their property? So I'll send that back to the town of Jasper to answer, please.
Well, first, I just want to say that we believe that all businesses will be critical to Jasper's future and reestablishing our local economy. As Mayor Ireland said, we appreciate that we need to reestablish that economy for Jasperites to have a livelihood to come home to. Having said that, we do have to prioritize access to ensure the safety of anybody that's going in. As I think might have been mentioned, we have a really significant number of resources from all different types of agencies and utilities working in the town site. Upwards of, I think, 900 individual resources on the incident today. Coordination is a challenge, and we need to ensure that we prioritize those businesses which will enable other services to reopen and which will support the general reentry of the population. So this really is a reflection of the prioritization of our limited resources and coordination, ability to coordinate and keep people safe. It is not a reflection of the criticality or importance of any business in terms of the perception of the municipality of Jasper or anybody on this call. All businesses will be important to the resumption of the community of Jasper.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Kurt. Kurt's in Grand Prairie and asking, when will we get a bus tour? I'm not sure if Town of Jasper or perhaps EMA would like to answer that.
Thank you. And I would encourage all of those outside of not just Edmonton and Hinton to register online. Our folks in Grand Prairie and in Calgary, they're being reached out to over the next few days to schedule yourselves in to have the tour of the town site. So I know that's the active registrants are being addressed right now and being scheduled for buses for the next day and the next day after. So we will be in contact with you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Jonathan, and Jonathan is asking about the damage around Palisades Center. How is the damage in that area? Perhaps Bill or Steve could answer that.
Yeah, Steve Blake here. The Palisades was fairly significantly impacted by the wildfire that went through. We lost approximately half of the buildings, and the rapid assessment that has taken place doesn't characterize the scope or scale of the buildings. So I know some of the larger, more historic buildings were lost, and some of the support buildings are still there, but suffice it to say, severely impacted and half the buildings lost in the fire.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Emma. What are my options for counseling? I don't have much coverage. Maybe we'll ask Corrine from MHA to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Kathy. Emergency situations like natural disasters and associated loss can take a toll on one's mental health. And while it's common to feel stressed or anxious during times like these, you don't have to face it alone. If you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health, 211 Alberta is there to help you. 211 Alberta provides vital information and connects Albertans to critical mental health services and supports. And this includes everything from immediate crisis support to virtual counseling, to programs and services right in your community. Anyone struggling with their mental health can call or text 211 or visit ab.211.ca for more information and help. This service is free, confidential, and available 24/7 in more than 170 languages. Additionally, Alberta's government is helping more Albertans get the mental health support they need by increasing access to affordable counseling through Counseling Alberta. Virtual counseling services are now available across Alberta, including in rural areas. Counseling Alberta provides same-day, no wait list, accessible and affordable counseling sessions for all Albertans, and for evacuees of the wildfire, the service is free. You can contact Counseling Alberta directly by calling 1-833-827-4230 or visiting counselingalberta.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Corrine. Our next question comes from Cliff. Cliff is asking about the $450 from the Red Cross. Cliff says he registered online on July 26th, but hasn't received a call. So I'll ask Melanie from the Red Cross to respond. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Cliff, for your question. So to clarify, the Canadian Red Cross is providing $750 per household upon registration to eligible primary residents of Jasper. To date, we've been able to mobilize payments to 2,500 households as of today. With that payment, sometimes there's a problem with the registration as we are able to validate people's identities as known Jasper residents and quickly pay. In some cases, especially with the Jasper town site, there's many employee-provided accommodations and seasonal workers. So seasonal workers are absolutely eligible. As we go through our lists of employee-provided accommodations, sometimes it takes us a bit longer to identify that someone at an address is in fact an employee and not a guest of a hotel, for example. But our teams are calling back. We're making about 300 outbound calls a day to try to validate anybody who has not been able to authenticate. And so we are calling folks back. I welcome you, Cliff, to please call into our 1-800 number and self-identify that you're waiting for a call back. And one of our team members will certainly call you back and validate that you are in fact eligible for the payment.
Thank you, Melanie. Just another reminder for anybody on the call tonight, if you would like to ask a question for any member of our panel, please press *3 on your phone and you'll be connected with an operator who will take down your question. For those of you listening online, please enter your question directly into the portal. Our next question is from a caller, Karen. She's got a question for Parks Canada. Karen, your line is now open. Please go ahead with your question.
Oh, hi. I lost my house and I'm just wanting to get the process started of getting a modular home built. And maybe it's a bit premature, but we don't want to be stuck in a lineup of houses. So we want to be back in Jasper as soon as possible. So just wondering if Parks Canada is going to be able to provide any, like if they're going to expedite any building permits or anything so that we can get some information on that so we can provide that to our builder to get things started or let us know when this will be possible. I know maybe this is a bit premature, but you guys are talking about building back and getting your, I also own a business in town, so I think, you know, having something tangible to come back to would be great. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for the question, and it is a great question. It's early, but I think one of the messages here for everybody that's listening that being proactive and thinking ahead is going to be yield you better results. As much as the emergency management process, the teams, the town, the municipality, the Alberta government are working hard on your behalf. Taking steps you can to support yourself will absolutely be critical and beneficial to you moving forward. Parks Canada is working through its national office capacity to refine, and with Alberta and the municipality. Again, all these are working in coordination. But to make sure that our processes are refined, we have the resources to deal with building and development permits in short order. And we are still working feverishly at the re-entry piece, and the recovery and rebuilding phase is being planned and it's well underway, and we'll be publishing and distributing that information in the coming weeks, I would suggest. That work is ongoing, but we don't have a deadline for you or a date for you, but it's a great question, and by all means do as much of your legwork as possible to be prepared, because Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper will be ready to support your application or your process of rebuilding when we reach that point in the road.
If I could, maybe I'd just add to what Steve said. Everyone recognizes the desire to rebuild as quickly as possible. We've also been asked by a number of residents if they can do different types of things with their properties than maybe were done in the past, increasing density or changing zoning. And those are all things that are absolutely on the table. And as you can appreciate, if we're building differently than in the past, then that adds some additional wrinkles that every party will need to account for. Please rest assured, though, Karen, I think a core part of your question was about capacity. As Steve said, Parks Canada, the municipality, and our partners at GOA are all thinking about surge capacity. We know there's going to be a high volume of applications that are going to come in as soon as the doors open, and we are working to be ready for that when the time is right.
Thank you, Bill and Steve. Our next question is for Minister Ellis and maybe a department official. It's from Jim, who says, I'm worried about looting. What is being done to protect properties while we're out of town? Minister, did you want to start?
Yes, thank you very much for that question, and it is an excellent question. I will tell you that first of all, the RCMP are all hands on deck for what is going on in the Jasper area. Certainly there are access control that they have, of course, on both sides when we talk about entering into the park. I can tell you through my personal observations and, of course, what I've heard from the Incident Command team, that there are active patrols that are within the park. So they're essentially patrolling the neighborhoods, obviously checking to make sure scenes are safe, obviously checking to see if there's any active looting. Of course, they will deal with it appropriately and according to law. We in Alberta have also offered our Alberta sheriffs to supplement and support in any way that the sheriffs can, whether it be relief or certainly anything that we can do, even escorts, if there's something that we can do to help out the RCMP, because we know that resources can be tight, and we know that people are working sometimes double time, triple time right now just to support the folks in Jasper. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We've got a live caller now. We've got Ashita calling in with a question for immigration. Ashita, your line is now open. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi there. Hope you all are doing well. Just a quick question. I moved to Jasper in June, so not a long time in Jasper, but I moved for my PR process, like the immigration thing. That was the only option I found, but I'm quite stressed now, like where I had to go for the PR thing. So it would be great, like if I can get like any solution or something, like an update regarding like the immigration process which is going in Jasper. I was going to apply for the rural stream, like rural renewal stream, but not sure now what's gonna happen. And yeah, I'm quite stressful because my work permit is almost going to end next year. That's my question.
Thank you for the question. So maybe I will just provide two pieces of information. So one is in general around the federal government and the special measures that they introduced. So for temporary foreign workers who have an employer-specific work permit, they can apply for an open work permit and they don't need to pay any fees for that. That would allow temporary foreign workers secure employment with a different employer if they are in that kind of circumstances. In terms of a permanent residence process, Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, which is the economic immigration program that allows for nominations for permanent residency, we have introduced special measures, and we are providing a time for applicants. They will hold applications for up to a year to help individuals in the circumstances, and we'll review each applications very carefully before we make decisions, and we'll reach out to individual applicants. Thank you.
Yeah, Kathy, it's Mr. Ellis here. I'd like to supplement. Don't mind.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that very important question. I will tell you that obviously the Premier noted that herself and myself were in Hinton yesterday with the Prime Minister, as well as Minister Boissonnault, who was there as well. And this is one of the issues that we raised to him, and certainly the stress that, as you indicated, justifiably so, that you might be having, as well as others might be having. I will tell you at a very high level, Minister Boissonnault indicated his understanding of what you're facing and indicated that the federal government would be flexible. And I think, again, that's part of that collaboration between municipal, provincial, and federal governments, and working to collaborate with the extraordinary circumstances that are going on in the Jasper area. So certainly, as our previous speaker had indicated, the process you need to go down. But I can tell you that in speaking to Minister Boissonnault personally, as well as the Premier, that the federal government did indicate their flexibility in helping those who have temporary foreign worker status. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Gosha. Our next question comes from Janet. Janet says their house burned down and the insurance is due in a week. Do they renew and pay it or not? I'll ask Rob from the Insurance Bureau of Canada to answer that, please.
Janet, first, I'm very sorry that you have such damage to your home. Your home insurance, even though your home may not be there anymore, it provides coverage for more than just the home itself. It also provides coverage for your contents, your additional living expenses, and importantly, liability. So it is important to maintain your insurance because wherever you're living, if you have more contents, you want to make sure that those are properly covered as well. And you want to maintain that liability coverage. It'll be important to reach out to your insurance representative to explain your current situation and also to let them know how to get a hold of you and where you're temporarily living now in case you do need other types of coverage for where you're going to be living for the next while your home is being rebuilt. Thank you, Janet.
And thank you, Rob. And if any of you would like to ask a question at any time during the information session, please press *3 to be connected with one of our operators, or if you're listening online, please enter your comment or question directly into the portal. So our next question comes from John. John says he lost his home and is asking if the cleanup of destroyed properties will be done by each person, or will the town take on the cleanup all at one time? So I'll see if Bill or Mayor Ireland would like to answer that from Jasper.
Thanks. I think I'll take that one, and it might be supplemented by Rob from Insurance Bureau of Canada. Obviously, individual home owners or property owners have relationships with individual insurance companies. Certainly in a situation like this, there may be opportunities for collaboration, and I think the insurance industry has some experience with that, but the town won't be doing that on individual property owners' behalf. But as I said, the insurance industry certainly has some experience, sadly, with these types of situations, and I think Rob can probably provide a bit more detail.
Thank you, Bill, and you're exactly right. John, the insurance industry is working together. We've spoken with all the major insurance companies to develop a coordinated mass debris removal program. We know that there's hundreds of structures, unfortunately, that have been damaged in this incident. And it's going to take a lot of work to make sure that this is done in a coordinated, efficient, and effective manner. One thing that I've noticed when we're embedded inside of the command center is there's some incredible collaboration and a lot of the unified command with the different organizations that are working together for that common goal of making sure that the community is safe and that the Jasperites can be returning to a community. We're involved in those conversations and we're working very well with all the people that we need to take on this responsibility like we've done in other events to make sure that we can be effective and efficient when we get to that stage.
Thank you. Our next question comes from James. James asks, if my apartment burned down, do I have protection from my landlord not allowing me in the rebuild or raising the rent way higher? I'm going to ask Chelsea from Service Alberta to answer that, please.
Hi, James. So first, I'm sorry that your home was destroyed in this fire. When a property is destroyed, the agreement is considered to be frustrated, which means that you may stop paying rent and your landlord is required to return the security deposit. Once the property is rebuilt, you would then need to enter into a brand new agreement with your landlord. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next question comes from Ted, and Ted asks, are bears a concern for entry into homes? Freezer full of meat or freezer full of probably rotten meat. So I'll ask Steve from Parks Canada if he can answer that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ted. I'm going to say generally, no, that's not a problem. And on top of that, we have our wildlife-human complex staff that is their job to manage wildlife and human attractants and interactions between people and bears, for example, are on shift daily. They know where the bears are, they know what their activity is, and they're keeping them well away from any facilities or anyone's fridge or freezer. But again, inside your home, that's a generally safe place. We don't have any history of that in Jasper. We don't anticipate it with our coverage, again, of our expert personnel in this regard, that would be any sort of problem.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to remind callers that we've got about 25 minutes left in our session tonight. So if you do have a question, please dial *3 on your phone to be connected with an operator, or enter your comment directly into the portal if you're participating online. Our next question comes from Denise. And Denise is asking if seniors will be able to go back to Jasper coinciding with the hospital reopening. So I'm going to ask David from SCSS to answer that, please.
Thank you very much for the question. So as Jasper moves into a re-entry phase, and when Jasper is able to move into a re-entry phase, the Alpine Lodge will reopen as safe to do so. So there was no apparent damage from the outside to the Alpine Lodge. So as the town begins its phased re-entry, seniors will be able to re-enter if they were occupants of the lodge. Unfortunately, the Pine Grove Manor was destroyed in the fire. So we will be working closely along with the Evergreens Foundation to find alternative accommodations for all of the individuals who were residents of the Pine Grove Manor. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next question comes from Hank. Hank is asking if locals and employees without accommodations would be able to sleep in the campgrounds with access to shower and electricity to get by until Thanksgiving. So I'll ask maybe Steve from Parks Canada to answer that.
Yes, and thanks for your question, Hank. And in general, that is the type of camping offer that we would like to achieve at some of our facilities. We know we're going to need to use these facilities that aren't damaged to put people in temporarily and re-look at the way we regulate camping activities adjacent to Jasper. I can say with the big campgrounds near town, the ones that have full services, extensive damage from the fire, and I can't commit that they'll be ready to receive any type of use before Thanksgiving. So there's two parts to that question I see. Will we allow this activity to take place? That's all being discussed within our reentry and recovery strategy and where people are going to go and how we're going to house them. And the second part is our campgrounds are nowhere near ready to receive any type of visitation at this point. So Thanksgiving is a milestone. I would say that's a highly doubtful situation that we'll be able to achieve that on the calendar, so to speak.
Thank you, Steve. Our next question comes from Marley, and it's for the Red Cross. Marley says they're not located near an evacuation center and have been displaced for 10 days trying to get the $750 aid, but having difficulty. They're not close to an evacuation office. So Melanie from the Red Cross, if you'd like to respond to that, please.
Thanks. Thanks for your question, Marley. We are recognizing you may have moved quite far to get your evacuation supports. That's understandable. We are opening a site in Hinton on Thursday that can help rectify payments, and we have a site in Edmonton, and we are invited to be at the site in Calgary and Grand Prairie. We have done some outreach there. We know a lot of people have dispersed far away, so we have implemented what we're calling a virtual authentication service. So if you can't get anywhere in person, we have teams who will visit with you online to help make any adjustments to your registration and validate your identity. So again, you can give us a call and self-identify at our 1-800 number, 863-6582, and identify that you would like a virtual appointment, and we can meet with you that way.
Thank you, Melanie. Our next question comes from Kyle. Kyle is saying that many cars broke down during the evacuation. Where are those cars now that were still on the road? Have they been impounded or towed? So I'll ask Bill from the town or Steve from Parks Canada to answer that, please.
Certainly, Christopher from Municipality of Jasper. I can start this off. Of course, some of those cars were and currently still are in the way of getting the work done that needs to be done for the town cleanup. So some of the cars will need to be moved if they haven't already. But there is no one ticketing those cars or sort of impounding them. I did speak with Rob from IBC, and I don't know, Rob, if you want to jump in, but cars in this situation, I understand, are still insured and would be covered for if they're insured, they're covered.
Oh, Rob, did you want to?
Yes. Thank you, Christopher. It's Rob from IBC. You're exactly right. If your vehicle broke down and it was on the side of the road, your vehicle still has insurance. So that particular vehicle, if it is moved, once we know where that vehicle is, you'll be able to go and pick it up. And even for some of the vehicles that are severely damaged, these vehicles are going to be moved, as Christopher mentioned, because it's a safety factor for the people that are currently working in the area. Remember that even if your vehicle is moved, if your vehicle is damaged, you still have insurance and you can still make a claim for that vehicle. Contact your insurance provider, they'll assign an adjuster, and they'll start going through the process for you.
Thank you both for that. Our next question comes from Diane. Diane is asking for some type of information on their property on the properties in campgrounds. So Steve, can you speak to any information you may have on property located in campgrounds?
Yes, thank you, Diane, for the question. And we've completed our inventory of the property remaining in campgrounds. We have put together a list, and we'll be calling people directly. There won't be a broad public communication. It's be a one-on-one. So I'll write your name down. I'm sure, Diane, that will help me sort of surface that in the longer list. But we'll try and get you that ASAP. And as with everything, we're gathering the information, communicating it as it comes to us, and we'll let you know as soon as we have something substantial for you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Jody. For those of us who have property, a duplex on a double lot, can we subdivide our lot for a single home instead of attached? Can we expedite the process? Is that done through the municipality or through parks? So I'm not sure if Bill or Christopher or Steve would like to answer that.
I'll speak to this to start. Steve might wish to supplement. So certainly that authority is with parks, but this is already actively a part of the discussion. As I referenced before, we understand that there are people who may wish to do rebuild differently, rebuild in a way that's different than what was there before. And that's all a part of that understanding that we have that there's going to be a need for surge capacity, not just for development permits, but also for planning services. So this is already under active discussion between parks, the municipality, and then of course with our support of the Government of Alberta partners. So yes, we understand that that's going to be a desire. Yes, we are gearing up to be ready to have the capacity to support those desires and having those conversations so we can enable the reconstruction of Jasper as practically soon as possible.
And thanks, Bill. It's Steve here, and I will just add to that. I think Bill mentions capacity. I mentioned capacity in a previous question that has the same kind of tone to it, like, are we going to change the way we do things? Capacity, expertise are the cornerstones, but creativity and working with the community to try and envision how Jasper is best positioned to manage our housing demands and so on will be a big part of our conversation happening in the short term to allow us to plan this right for the long term.
Thank you both. We've got a live question coming in now from Dennis. Dennis, your line is open. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. The question is for the municipality. For people who lost properties, what are the municipality is, what's their plan for taxation for those properties? Are they going to have to wait till next July 31st or July 15th next year to make the adjustment, or is there going to be a more current adjustment?
Bill Given here. Dennis, thanks very much for the question. So absolutely, this is something that's already on the minds of administration. We expect in the coming week or so to bring forward some recommendations to council on areas of relief that we can provide to residents, particularly those whose properties have been destroyed. We respect the fact that taxes are on people's minds, as are utilities, and so we expect to bring a suite of recommendations to council in the next little while. There are certainly precedents for this in other communities that have faced similar issues. We will also be looking to Government of Alberta with respect to the education requisition or the education portion of the property tax. Certainly we can forgive portions of the municipal property tax, but we can't do that on behalf of the province of Alberta. And then similarly, there's going to be a loss of revenue for evergreens as well. So those are areas where the municipality isn't necessarily in control, but administration realizes that this is on people's minds. We expect to bring forward recommendations to municipal council on all of these items. And that's something that we don't want to have people have to wait an entire year for. We appreciate the financial strain and the stress that people are under, and we foresee some opportunities to provide some relief there. And we'll be bringing those recommendations forward to council in the next number of weeks here.
Thank you. We've got another live caller. Cheryl has a question for Parks Canada. Cheryl, your line is now open. Please go ahead with your question.
It's kind of twofold. I have a question regarding the campgrounds. I still haven't really had a lot of clarity on which campgrounds are impacted. And then I'm also still really curious about Pyramid Bench and what is happening there as far as the fire goes.
Okay, well, I can answer that. I can tell you Whistler, Wapiti, and Wabasso campgrounds all very significantly impacted. We have some rapid assessments done on the facilities there. Whistler is the only one I kind of have firsthand information on, and it's got extensive cleanup and damage. We're hoping after the $55 million federal investment in that new campground that the underground utilities are all in good shape, but we haven't been able to assess that yet. But initial indications seem that that campground will be reasonably recoverable in short order. The other ones faced more severe damage, so no, I can't really make any comments on that. On Pyramid Bench, active wildfire in a few locations, lots of firefighting activity to protect the facilities up there. Obviously, where the fire burned around the main valley, this is still one of the potential avenues for it to return. But it's, as far as highly impacted areas by the fire, a lot of the Pyramid Bench as we know it is hasn't been burned with the intensity, but it remains active, and we'll publish the information through our normal channels when we have good sort of concrete updates on that.
Thank you for that. Our next question comes from Jay, and it's for the Red Cross. Will funds be automatically given out for the past and next week of $57 per day for fund and allowances, or do we need to physically go back to a center? I'll ask Melanie to answer that from the Red Cross.
Hi, I think there may have been somebody from AEMA who perhaps wanted to take the lead on this.
Actually, it's Christopher with the municipality of Jasper.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Christopher.
No problem, Melanie. And Melanie and Joe may want to supplement, but there is a bit of misconception out there, or confusion. We have 3 reception centers that were instigated at the request of the municipality of Jasper to support our evacuees. We have great partners in Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie who stepped up at the request and support of AEMA. Those facilities are operated by those 3 municipalities, again, at our request and with the support of AEMA. In Edmonton's case, they have partnered with the Red Cross to facilitate the delivery of the reception center services, and I believe that's partly the lodging and partly the food support. So the money that this caller or question is speaking to is actually the same money that is receivable at Edmonton, Calgary, or Grand Prairie. It's just delivered slightly differently in each of the municipalities based on their own policies and procedures. So it is not that the Red Cross is holding anything back from Calgary or Grand Prairie. It is only that the Red Cross is the service provider at the request of the City of Edmonton and Edmonton. This has nothing to do with the $750 that the Red Cross is providing to every household of the evacuees. I think that answers the question, and I'd open for Melanie and Joe to chime in.
Yeah, to augment, in regards to Edmonton specifically, when we get authorization from the City of Edmonton that AEMA has authorized the next week of assistance, the way it works in Edmonton through the service provided by the Red Cross is we will automatically launch the food assistance as we continue to extend the hotel service. But again, that authorization is provided by AEMA and then trickles down to the city and the service provider. And so should additional supports be authorized, the City of Edmonton, the Red Cross will automatically extend or repush the financial assistance as directed.
And I'll just triple supplement here. The municipality has extended the request through AEMA to our 3 providers, great partners in Edmonton, Calgary, and Grand Prairie. And we have extended that request twice now, and we will extend that request based on the need. And so as long as there are evacuees who need that support in those municipalities, the request will be extended basically until the need is no longer there. So evacuees should feel confident that the reception centers are not going to be pulled out from under their feet, that the support for our evacuees will be clearly advertised, given plenty of notice when the support will disappear, but that support is not going anywhere until there is no more need for that support in those 3 communities.
Thank you all for that. We've got another live question coming from Jess. Jess has a question for the town of Jasper. Jess, your line is open. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello. My question is actually for Steve Blake with Parks Canada. We are a mobile home owner that has lost everything, and it has been talked about on various public forums that we will be able to replace our mobile home with another mobile home. And I'm hoping to put Steve on the spot and say that I can put another trailer on my lot.
Yes, and I mean, that is the question. I mean, I think we are trying to answer it in context. Are we going to allow rezoning? Are we going to allow different architectural guidelines? That's 100% on the table in terms of where we're trying to get to. Specifically, can I say that you can park a trailer on your lot? It's too early to call. The re-entry phase is our primary focus, and as we work on the recovery phase, these are the types of concessions that we're, as much as we're absolutely open to whatever creative solutions could bring people home and have them back to work and back in the community. I can't say specifically if that trailer situation will work. We still need to make sure there's utilities, life safety concerns, sewage treatment management. There's all the things that go into, you know, a building permit or a development permit to ensure that people are being housed safely will have to be on the table for this discussion as well. So great idea, and that's the kind of solution that we're going to need in terms of thinking out of the box, but can't answer your specific situation directly.
If I could, I know that Mayor Ireland has some additional specific information, because I think the caller's question was related to replacing a mobile home with a mobile home, and I know Mayor Ireland has some details about that.
I do. Thanks, Bill. And although I vowed not to get into subject matter analysis too deeply, I can tell you, Jess, and it is a particularly relevant question for you and so many of your neighbors who have lost their homes there. And I really send my heart out to you for those losses. But I can tell you that Council raised this matter with Parks Canada a number of years ago, recognizing the threat of wildfire to the town. And so the superintendent, Alan Fair, and I signed off an agreement, in fact, in July of 2018, that confirms that despite the general provision in the mobile home district that henceforth trailers could only be replaced by houses, we made an exception for the involuntary removal of trailers. And so this is about as involuntary as it gets. So I want to give you some comfort that we had thought about this years ago and recognized that in the event of a calamity such as we have suffered, there would have to be an ability for people to replace trailer with trailer, despite the guidelines that we're going to hopefully transform that area into housing. So I want to give you some assurance that I know that agreement exists. I am certain that Parks Canada will be aware that it exists. And beyond that, I have had discussions with Ron Holman, the president and CAO of Parks Canada, who has assured me that all barriers will be removed if there is any doubt about the effect of that particular provision. I can say with some degree of confidence that we will find a solution that works for people like you and your neighbors who have replacement insurance, but of course the replacement is the replacement of a trailer, not a new house. So I hope that you are able to sleep tonight, and I'm sorry, Steve, that I'm giving that sort of information that perhaps hadn't come to you, but I think it's good news for residents in that district.
Richard, I just want to say thank you very much for that contribution. I mean, this is actually, like your corporate knowledge on this is, of course, deep and very clear. So this is the type of thing I will immediately feed to our team, so we don't get any other ideas, so to speak. We'll just say this will be part of our re-entry and recovery planning, that we know that agreement is in place. Will reduce a lot of potential confusion looking forward. So I really appreciate that contribution, Richard.
Thank you for those responses. That's all the time we had for questions today. I'm going to invite Deputy Premier and Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, Mike Ellis, to share some closing thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for participating on today's town hall. Again, we know that this is a very challenging time for everyone. I can tell you, having been to the command post, there are many people that are working on trying to help the town of Jasper, and I'm really proud of the collaboration between the municipality, the province, and of course the federal government as well. Ladies and gentlemen, certainly on behalf of the Premier, on behalf of all of my colleagues, thank you again. Stay tuned for regular updates that we have on a daily basis when it comes to the daily media updates. And stay tuned for our next evacuee town hall. And I thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you all for your questions and comments this evening, and thank you to all the representatives who provided responses. As the Minister said, stay tuned for more information. You can visit alberta.ca/emergency for information on what you heard this evening, including additional phone numbers, resources, email addresses, and other websites for evacuees. So thank you again, and good night.